Good morning. Good morning. September 21st, 2022. How am I feeling? Well, I'm tired. I've been putting in full days, keeping really weird hours, to which I've been up since about 4:30 a.m. this morning, and it is approximately 7:45 in the morning, and I'm just starting this. So I figure what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up where I left off, reread number 17 on this appeal application, right? And then we'll just see how we go from there, because there's quite a few sentences, right? But we're just playing catch up with our thoughts. Why are you all of a sudden starting to fuss? Why are you being a fusspot? Are you laughing or fussing? Which one? I was in the dirt yesterday after I did whatever I did. And, oh boy. I got myself all those little miscellaneous potatoes that were left behind. And then I fed the ground with what my neighbors give me in terms of vegetable scraps, which is good. My landlady came by. She told me that her husband, Mr. Gill, is making me some eye medication, and that, he's already spoken to his own eye doctor because he's got eye issues too, right? And it's good to go, but it stings when you put the drop in, because it's like turmeric or something in there. And I said, well, because they want me to go to the hospital and just forget about the yard and just forget about everything and just go deal with my eyes. And I'm trying to tell my landlady, I'm like, no, I just can't go yet, right? I have things to do. The weather is changing, and there's only so much time where I can be in a position where I can lift things. Because once they start poking at my eyes, I'm not going to be able to lift and pull and tug and shove and just everything else that I do in a freaking day. I don't even know how I'm going to manage with Amari, although Tisha would probably take Amari for me for a while anyway. Or she could come every day and help me, depending on what's going on, right? But in the meantime, once I do this, I won't be able to go out in the yard, and there's just too much to do, right, people? And it's not like I haven't tried to hire individuals, but it's turning out where I'm just inviting trouble into my yard. And you would think that I would know this, but then I don't like to broad sweep every disenfranchised person and say, well, I'm not going to give you a chance to earn some extra money because, you're living on the fringe. It's just not my character, people. So that's where people take my kindness as a weakness, and they take it for granted. Because last year I hired a man who said he could do the gutters, right? Cut a deal, was willing to pay out $500-$600 to do the gutters and just tidy up the wood and whatever, right? It was $10 an hour. I don't know, people. He just started trashing shit and ripping down this, and he had me buying things and wasn't using the parts. And finally I just told him to fuck off, because he was getting mouthy with me and and acting like he was the owner of the house. And oh my god. Okay, so everything came to a screeching halt. As soon as I get this off my chest, I'm going to just get into reading what I wrote from 17 on, okay? So anyway, whatever, winter came, whatever, okay, and now, and then again, I met two people out of my yard that were polite, you know, right? They didn't seem threatening or, and you know, offered them a little bit of employment. Whether they were on the fringe or not, it didn't matter. The point is I need the help, right? They're poking around in junk, right? So why not? If you need junk or you want junk, then you probably want a little bit of money too. That's when I found out that they were living on the fringe at the homeless shelter. Okay, whatever. I'm not going to cast judgment. You guys are polite to me now. You're not scattering things around now. You're not being, disruptive. You're not, right? So, and then what? They come, they work, right? She leaves. Now, you know what I'm thinking now, people? I think she left not because she felt threatened by me, as this guy tried to make it sound like, oh, well, she gets funny whenever I'm around another woman because, she just kind of like, I'm going home. I know what you're up to. That's what she said to Wally. And then she left. And I'm like, no, 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 don't go, Sarah. Just stay, like, right? I think I think she knew that he was scoping out my freaking yard. That instead of with true intentions of working, he was plotting and scheming how he could maybe come back and take something. Who knows? Or whatever. I don't think it was what he suggested because when I asked him, like, why did she leave? Like I didn't go out of my way to make her feel comfortable, right? You know what I'm saying? And the faster I can get this done, the faster I can go get this done, right? So two people working is better than one person. Anyway, he came back the next morning because he says he works good in the morning. Yeah, you work good in the fucking morning. You ran around my yard and he was tweaking people. That's what he was doing. He's the one who opened up that shed and with his mixed up brain, but he showed a little remorse because he went after, when he took Amari's stroller. There was a box out where I had my stuff that I wasn't had out in the road that has extension like cords to run cameras around the house. And they have their own ports, right? I thought I'd keep those just in case, if and when I can ever string cameras around this house to see who's, to catch the people, because I'm thinking now it's more than one creeping my yard. Okay. And the reason I say this, unless, of course, whatever Julian's sister is doing in terms of like killing my trees in their planter pots and killing the violet tree and killing, my grass. And I'm pretty sure she came back in and dug up some potatoes. And then, whether it was her or somebody else in the neighborhood that went to another potato patch and stole the potatoes and then went to another, 3 potato patches were raided, right? But they were more than just raided because whoever did that also took the stalks with them so that it was you couldn't but deny that somebody had been in there and had done something. Okay. So, with the vendetta and the vindictiveness around Julian's sister, and with her admitting that she already poured bleach into my plants and whatnot, right? It's too easy for her to come by here after she leaves Shakers, which is the local strip club out here, right? It's just a 15-minute walk, right? 3 o'clock in the morning, nobody's around. After work, just do whatever she wants, put on her fucking hoodie, and there you go. But then on the other hand, after going through what I went through with Wally, like he noticed that I had plums, right? And I said, yeah, but I'm leaving them for my landlady, right? Because, she like a little girl when it comes to stuff like that. And she's old. And there's only so many things in life that bring true pleasure. And one of those things is when you can go back into your childhood and just be free. And I'll give you an example of this. My landlady came over yesterday to inform me that her husband is making eye drops. and that, he's already confirmed with his eye doctor that, it's okay, right? It's not going to cause me any more damage than what I've already got, right? And if anything, after a month or two, my eyesight may even improve. But she warned me that it stings for the first minute when it's in your eyes and not to give up. And I'm like, okay, don't worry, Mrs. Gill. Like, I've got nothing to lose here, everything to gain. And, I'll try it before I get to the hospital. Understand that if I felt that it was a real emergency, I would let you know. Tisha would call you that, everything came to a screeching halt and I'm in the hospital because of this. Outside of that, it's business as usual. And I told her that, right? And she offered to get me a bin, right? Oh, I'll get you a bin. And I'm like, oh, geez, Mrs. Gill, don't you understand that when you talk to me like that, it hurts my feelings? That's what I told her, right? Oh, why? And I said, well, because I'm fixing the fence, Mrs. Gill. I fixed 3 panels of the fence. Whatever it is that you think you're throwing into the bin is what I'm using to fix the fence, right? I just use that as an example for her. Oh, the planter pots, get rid of the empty planter pots. But you see, this is the thing. She doesn't understand. I'm already one step ahead of her. I want to do it too. It's just I don't have the energy to go out there and empty planter pots, separate the rocks for drainage from the dirt. That's why I hired Sarah, because she was doing a good job, but for whatever reason, she thought her husband was up to something and she freaking left. And considering that he came back the next day in the morning, supposedly because he works good, no, what he did is he came back into my yard and he started tweaking, right? And making attempts to steal shit in terms of the cords and stuff, because I found that yard cord up by the shed there where Matilda was with her babies that he opened up because I told him it needed to be fixed. Anyway, okay, let's get back to my landlady here. I said, yeah, okay, so yeah, I'm up for it, no problem. Okay, I'm already putting aloe vera a little bit juice in my eyes and around my eyes and a little bit in my eye. Okay, so I can go as far as whatever my landlord is making, which I think has turmeric in it, which is fine because at the end of the day, for a Punjabi with a turban, if I was to trust any Punjabi with a turban, it would be my landlord because he saved Mr. Lace. And so did Dr. Bath, who was a Punjabi with a turban. Okay? So if they can save Mr. Lace, then you never know. My eyesight might improve over the next month because I'll probably work for about a month before I'll work anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks before going to the hospital to deal with this. Because once I deal with this, that's it. I'm not going to be able to pull, tug, shove, lift, strain, struggle, dig, whatever it is that hammer, whatever, fucking reach up, whatever it is that I'm doing in a freaking day when I'm out and about, I won't be able to do it for months. And I can't afford that. I can't afford it. It's not what I want. Just like I don't need my landlord to tell me to empty out the planter pots because I already want them emptied out. I already want it cleared out. I just, for crying out loud, why do I want to look at dead trees? Knowing that Julian's sister came by in the middle of the night and poured freaking bleach in them just to kill him. You know? Out of sight, out of mind, right? So, but it doesn't warrant a bin to have the whole planter pot thrown into the bin just because my landlady, personally, as an individual, her idea of a yard basically is with nothing in it. Right? Like a minimalist, right? Which is fine, but for a yard like mine, it didn't turn out that way. Whereas my landlord, he sees it as, well, just leave her be, and more than likely something will happen, to which it is in terms of the fence is getting fixed at no cost to him. Right? So, of course, my landlady had to go look at the other plum tree to go look at the fence, because I told her, because she came by also to get plums, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Right? And what do you call it? I told her, there are no plums. Somebody raided me again. She was so disappointed. She got some, though, because Andre went up on the rabbit hutch roof and picked up those ones that whoever came and got the lower ones, they stole them, which was more than likely probably Wally in this situation, because he made note of the plum tree. And then he came back the next day and got into the shed and scattered things around and whatever, and mysteriously all the plums disappeared. Right? So anyway, when we were I'll tell you about this other thing with the plums in a minute, but when we were discussing this bin situation and whatever, and I told her, like, no, you can't do that, because one, it hurts my feelings, because you don't understand what I go through in this yard and how I feel the need to keep these things, so that when I do have the energy and time, or maybe I can get lucky and hire guys to do it for me or whatever, the materials are here at no cost to nobody. And that's just the reality of it, right? And I reminded her that I did 3 panels on the fence, right? She go, oh. And then we went to go get the plums. And this is where she gets cute, because she likes to climb up in the tree if she could. And she's like 82 years old and she's tiny. Right? So, of course, that mother instinct in me kicks in. I'm like, I just stand there. I don't touch her. She doesn't like to be touched, right? Unless, I'm helping her down or something. Because we're up by the plum tree, the first one. And first thing she notices, there are no plums. And I'm like, yeah, no kidding. And then she points out that there's a broken branch. And I said, yes, I noticed that. Because they were here, 4 or 5 days ago, and they were going to come back. So she knows where the plums are, because she was just there with her husband. But this time she came back by herself to tell me about the eye medication that he's making, and to scoop up on some plums, and to check up on the grapes, and to tell me that I need to go to the hospital, and that she's willing to get me a bin just to make my life easier. Okay. So anyway, we're under the plum tree, and she's like, right, next thing you know it, she grabs this stump that is ready to be busted up and put into the dirt to further decompose. In other words, it's not solid. And she climbing up on it, and I coming in, right? And I'm like, I look, and there she's standing on this little, because I'm like looking around, whatever, okay? Anyway, she did it so fast that, next thing you know, she's standing on this stump that's teetering. And I'm like, where did you get that from? Right? And why are you standing on that stump trying to get plums when Andre's coming out to help you get them? But you see, I already know my landlady. I know why she does that, because it takes her back to her childhood, to where she used to climb trees as a kid. And just throughout her whole life, she in the trees with the spiders, like me. Right? So anyway, Andre now is on top of the rabbit hutch roof. And of course, my landlady is standing on this stump, under all the branches, with me standing there. Now I'm just standing there like this. I don't touch her. I just, and I told her I used to do this for Uncle John, because he had bad eyesight when Uncle John was determined to want to do something or whatever it was. I didn't tell him he couldn't do it. I just said, okay, John, do what you want, but I'll just catch you if you fall. And I'd take the brunt of the fall, right? That's what we do as young people for people with disabilities like no eyesight, or if they're elderly. And I used to do that for my own grandmother as well. Anyway, so I'm standing there, and she's right. Andre's on top of the right, and he says something. I don't know how he said it, but what do you call it? I just told Andre, I said, Mrs. Gill just likes to do this because, it makes her feel like she's little again, playing in the tree. That's what it is, right? That's why, people like me, we just stand and pay attention to make sure that she doesn't fall, right? Because at the end of the day, it just feels good, right? To just be free, right? I don't know how I explained it to him, but that's basically what it was. And I said to Mrs. Gill, I said, that's right, Mrs. Gill, I know how you feel because I used to climb trees too. And she just giggled. She just giggled, people. So I do have a connection with my landlady because, we've been doing this for 12 years in terms of going through the yard. And then by the time we were, so okay, now she gets down off this stump. I'm looking at this, I'm poking at it, and I'm like, no, Mrs. Gill, you can't be standing on this stump. I said, I'll just look for another stump in my travels and I'll bring a new one in so that you have a new stump to stand on for next year. Now, whether she sells the house and there is no next year or whatever, the point is I will prepare a nice sturdy stump for her so that next year, if she wants to climb up on it at 83 years old, she can do that and be safe. Right? So anyway, Andre gets down. She did get a little bounty only because of what was on top, basically. And then she runs off to the other tree because there were plums on them, and I haven't been touching them, right? Because I've got a little teeny pot, just enough for Amari to cook up. I don't really want to can anything. I'll probably just cook those up and just put them in little jars and freeze them. So I haven't been touching them. I know it's like it's a fun time for her. It's not like she needs them or anything like that, but it's the fun part of it, and just taking her to that comfort zone in terms of where she felt safe and free, right? It's important for people. I don't want to say children or even elderly, but just for people. It's important for people to be able to feel safe and free. Picking plums, being independent, climbing on stumps when nobody's looking, and just whatever. That's safe and free because she knew I was there, and it wouldn't be long before I'd be doing that because I've done that with her multiple times over the years. This year, though, what she's noticing is that my stuff is being raided in the yard. She couldn't understand why there were no grapes because when she came and she looked at the grapes and tested the grapes and they weren't quite ready, we agreed that we'd just leave the grapes, like the ones without the seeds, for another few weeks, like another few more days or whatever it was. And then she came by to get the grapes, and all of a sudden there were no grapes. So that tells me somebody came in the yard and took all those grapes. And she looking at me, and I'm like, well, it wasn't me because I don't even have time to process this stuff this year, right? And I left them for her specifically because it makes her feel good, right? It's a little bounty that just, I don't know, it's just a psyche thing, right? In terms of taking you back to your childhood, and just being safe and free. Basically, I don't know how to explain it any other way. So she got disappointed because for whatever reason, they were all gone. Okay. Then on this side of the vine, because I got two different vines, those ones has seeds. She's never really liked those ones. She does take them, but not with zealot like she does with the other ones, right? Because she doesn't like the seeds. And they're there. She says she sees them because I tell her I can't even see them unless, of course, I really kind of like bring my face up to it. And there are some out there, but how safe they're going to be, people, honest to God, I don't know. 3 patches of potatoes robbed. The plum tree just currently robbed, right? And the grapes got robbed. We can't blame Wally for that one. And, just whatever, right? So anyway, because she went, because, we were talking about the bin and stuff. She went and she did kind of, I know she went to that other plum tree. I told her there were no plums on it, but she went anyway because she wanted to see the fence. I'm pretty sure she wanted to see the fence, right? And I hope she did notice that fence because, living in a house for 12 years and for a landlord to never fix a fence is, especially a cedar fence, because those things are no good. That's pretty amazing in terms of cost savings, right? And for what it's worth, people, a few days out of the year fixing a fence isn't really no great big deal in the great grand scheme of things, outside of when you're pressed for time like I am because you inherit an injured child, which makes life so much harder, not to mention you're aging yourself, right? So that's that I told her I spent $300 for you know fabric, whatever it's called, just to make everything look nice. Oh no, no, don't spend no more money. I said, look, it's weed control, because personally I'm getting tired of digging up freaking weeds every year in the dirt. So I'm going to try this year. And as I'm covering up the dirt, or where, I'm enriching it, right? So, if I want to plant something, I can. If I don't want to next year, I don't have to, right? And then we went to the garlic and the leek patch, and because they had all turned to seeds, and this is one thing my landlady would know about me. She, over the years, she'd come and she'd say like, "Oh, what's that?" And I'd be like, "I don't know." Well, what's that? We'll have to wait and see until it grows, right? In terms of squash, cucumber, and those kind of things, zucchinis. Don't ask me because I don't know. I start the seeds thinking I'll remember. By the time they get into the ground, I don't know what's growing. I don't know if it's a squash. I don't know if it's a cucumber. Anyway, I just told her that these because they flower and then they go into seed, and so she noticed that, right? So she asked, let's go ahead because I don't got time, right? So next thing you know, I think she even had her own knife, people. She whips out a knife because I got her a little bag, and and scissors or something. I don't know what she had, but she was just snip, 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 snip all the tops with the seeds on them, telling me that she cooks with them. And I'm like, okay, well, just so that you know, though, right? I don't know which is the garlic seed and I don't know which is the leek seed, which would be normal for me. Because if we were looking at a plant that was, ready to grow flowers, and well, is that cucumber or is that squash? And if so, if it's what kind of squash, and what kind of cucumber? And I'm like, or maybe it's a zucchini plant. I don't know. So I keep her brain thinking that way, right? So anyway, she got that. So that was a little bounty. So that was good, right? And but I appreciate what's coming. Hmm. It should be interesting to see if it works to some degree, right? I try and tell them that I have glaucoma, and they say, well, especially Mrs. Gill, she says that's what Mr. Gill has. However, Mr. Gill's eye doctor isn't a glaucoma specialist. So I don't know if he has glaucoma. I know he had cataracts and he was having a real problem with one eye in terms of double vision and that kind of stuff. But I don't know if he has glaucoma. I have open angle glaucoma. If I had closed angle glaucoma, apparently it's pretty painful. But because mine's open, it's not painful, although I can tell pressure, whatever, right? This eye has been kind of really wonky lately, but I just told my landlady that you can't be afraid to live your life, to live, not even live your life. I told her, you just can't be afraid to live. Just like you can't be afraid to die, poof, you're gone, nothing moves except you. You can't be afraid to live. So if I should go blind for whatever reason, like I said, I'll probably learn how to play the piano. And if I can't have access to a piano, then probably a keyboard. Assuming that my government doesn't put me out in the streets with the other people who are disenfranchised and on the fringe of life. Because of manufactured poverty. To which brings me back to this now. So how long did I talk on about that crap? Looks like 31 minutes. Yeah. So now we're going to just read what I've written so far. Now, apparently, Rhea wants to come over and help. Now, some people do work best under pressure, so there's still time, but I'm not going to pressure her to do it. So, because Tisha came by, right, and said that Rhea's going to call me and wants to help me with this, and I said, well, I'm only got 5 pages left to do in terms of what I've written, right? So, it's not, like I'm prepared to do it by myself. I'm not asking anybody to help me. I did tell my landlady I'm doing this. And so don't ask me to go to the hospital while I'm doing this because it ain't happening. Just like, I need to do a few more weeks in the yard before I actually go to the hospital. And they're so concerned about me that they're going to give me eye drops that they made because of, it's right, which is fine with me because the way the world is going, honestly, people are going to, at some point, I think in the future, rely on homemade medicines in order to be able to alleviate their symptoms or to cure whatever it is that's going on with them. I don't expect my eyesight to be cured. It could be alleviated, and right, which is perfectly fine. Okay, so anyway, Rhea may come by at some point between now and whenever. I asked Tisha to phone the Court of Appeals today to find out if that 30-day period is 30 business days or just 30 days, right? But I did look online under Court of Appeal here this morning, and it turns out that if you're running late on this stuff, you can put an application in to extend it. So, I mean, there is that possibility. The whole point of the exercise is just to go through the process, okay? To file it and just to go through it, okay? There's nothing more and nothing less that I can do. I don't expect any kind of outcome other than I'm going to get the same old rhetoric, right? But besides that point, and if Rhea does come by, I'm going to ask Rhea if whatever we're doing, if we can do it online. And, she may or may not agree. I'm going to tell her that my foot forward has always been that whatever is going on with quote unquote legitimate lawsuits should be public, should be televised, whatever. So this is no different. Okay, this is how it's created in order to be able to even file whatever I'm going to be filing. Okay? So the part that you don't get to see is when I'm sitting in front of a judge on MS Teams or in an actual courtroom standing in front of a judge. That part you don't get to see because, in my opinion, these judges like to keep it between lock and key behind closed doors. so that they can go back in after the fact and falsify their records to ensure that they, quote unquote, follow the court rules or change where, they were misleading in terms of a mistake, so that they can come back and say there were no mistakes if you challenge them, like with Justice Bowden. Yes, dismissed. No, that's not what he wrote in his transcript. He took out a whole bunch of yeses and wrote in a whole bunch of rhetoric that now Judge Ross is using against me. But if that thing would have been recorded, I could have proved that. But because it wasn't recorded, because you're not allowed to record it, that gave the judge freedom to falsify his own transcripts. More reason to make these things public. Let the public be the jury, not the judge. Okay, so the agenda for today is to read everything that I just wrote. And once I start reading, assuming our Amari stays quiet, I'm just going to read right through it. And then I'm probably going to end the live because honestly, I'm very tired because I got up at like 2:30 yesterday morning. And I was doing something, was working on this shit all day for the most part. Because after I got offline, I continued working. And then my landlady came, and then I just got into the yard and I just played in the dirt, right? Getting it ready to put it to bed and so it can sleep. But before I do that, I'm making sure it has food, right? So that was hard because I'm like mixing everything up and dragging, and then I didn't get to sleep. I laid down on the couch and oh my God, I ended up passing out. And then I got up again at 4:30. That's stupid. But that's okay. So today is kind of a slow day. After I finish this, get off, I probably won't type. I'll just want to read just to recap in my head. I know that whatever I'm doing, I'm probably missing pertinent facts or something pertinent I'm missing. But it doesn't really matter because it's a setup anyway. And, just as a recap in my own brain so that when I do sit down, whether I'm sitting down with Rhea or whether I'm sitting down by myself, it will just come faster in terms of finishing those last 5 pages. Okay, because I only got 5 pages left out of 17 pages. And one of those pages is just his sign off with his signature. So there's really nothing on it much more than that, right? And yeah, so let's just read. I'm going to start at number 17, to which is the number that I left off on, but just as a recap. And then I'm going to just try and read right through it because that's pretty much what I did yesterday. Yeah. Okay. And then I'm going to turn off the computer. I have still laundry to do. And then I got to get in there and, work on that lard, right? I have to, first of all, wash everything. Right? And then I got to wash. Well, I do have jars. Get my jars ready. And I'll use my little camera just as a recap. I'll just, do something there and jar them up and get them either in the fridge or in the freezer. I already did the cracklings, and then they're already in the freezer, so that's good. I have to bring this closer. I'm going to see if I can change the lighting in here a little bit. Oh boy. Wouldn't it be interesting if I use those? Well, I will use those that drop. I'm going to, right? And after a month or two, my eyesight actually improves. That'd be amazing. Yeah. Okay, number 17. So I am just going to read, nothing more than but read. Unless Amari starts getting goofy in there. Let me see if maybe I can get a different pair of glasses. Okay, that's no good. Okay. Through the compartmentalization of Justice Ross, understand through the compartmentalization of Justice Ross, understanding should be understanding. I'm not going to correct anything because if Rhea comes, if she doesn't come, I'll have to go back and struggle with it. Understanding of Judy Chorney's claim of gang stalking and the targeting of her family, and including Mr. Duncan, Justice Ross trivializes the seriousness of illegal and wrongful child apprehension, medical kidnapping, murder, and or the procurement of murder, and or the procurement to murder for financial gain, and in combination to the purposeful injury of infants at birth to keep in line with the targeting of a whole family that the province of British Columbia, Canada, deems as frivolous and scandalous and a waste of the court's time. Okay, and this is what I did yesterday. I think it was yesterday. I did a live yesterday, right? I don't remember. I already forgot. I already forgot. 18. Justice Ross made a personal presumption, 9B, on the death of Shimei Chorney and on the death of Sierra Chorney without looking at any evidence, and therefore he is being mischievous and irresponsible in his effort to cover up murder by fentanyl so that the harvesting of body parts can continue uninterrupted. 19. Andre Chorney is not the son of Judy Chorney. 9B. 9D. 20. By the Supreme Court, 11, refusing to request for a full investigation into all allegations and to refuse appointing a legal aid lawyer to represent Judy Chorney and family only benefits the province of British Columbia, Canada, and to their employees only benefits the province of British Columbia, Canada, and their employees who consecutively continue with gang stalking techniques that injure the Chorney family. 21. Justice Ross uses a play on words to distort material facts as he purposely ignores the evidence to those material facts. 1516 in terms of his numbers, right? Justice Ross continues to misrepresent Judy Chorney's claim to suggest Mr. Duncan was removed from her home, to which is untrue and a breach of trust to the court process. Number 17 within his dismissal. 23, Andre Chorney is not the son of Judy Chorney, and nor was the illegal apprehension of Andre Chorney appropriate. Okay, hold on. Was the legal apprehension of Andre Chorney appropriate, as the act itself caused lifelong injury to all members within Andre Chorney's family. Number 20. And then I end up putting his number in the front. Instead of having it at the back, I end up putting it in the front. So if I'm reading, say, number 56, this is his little, whatever it is right here, right? This is his number 56. Initially, I started off with putting the number 56 at the end of my sentence, but then I think I started putting it in the front as I went down, so that all I'll have to do is find his number to match it up with my number in terms of what I'm making reference to, okay? So that needs to be tidied up, okay? This is just a rough draft, eh? (24) Justice Ross once again is misleading material facts by stating that Shimei Chorney was dead 9 days prior to April 11, 2015. This is incorrect. Number 22 on his, do you see how he's jumping around? He's going from John to Andre to Shimei, back to John, back to, right? Like, what the fuck? Sorry, what the boo-boo? Just as I'm jumping, he's the one who was jumping, because I'm only making reference to the misinformation that he's putting in between his sections, right? He didn't compartmentalize anything, people. Okay? What he did is he mixed everybody up and trivialized it. I know, I'm not supposed to say anything. And I'm certainly not going to get mad. Number 25, Julian Johnson was not, okay, just stay focused, Shimei Chorney's boyfriend, but rather he was an ex-boyfriend who displayed violent tendencies against Shimei Chorney and her family, to which Justice Ross trivializes. I don't know if I should be writing that Justice Ross trivializes, because that's not a material fact, because I guess I can't really prove it now, can I? But I feel like I have nothing to lose by calling the dude out. Seriously, people, I don't. Anyway, 26. Justice Ross is being misleading to say that Judy Chorney did not qualify for social assistance in the 1990s, whereas the material facts are as is. Judy Chorney was illegally removed from social assistance under legislation that was not even in effect in the month of January 2003. "27. Justice Ross continues to import his own opinion as to where," do you see now? From me now back to John. Okay? Like 27. Justice Ross continues to import his own opinion as to where Mr. Duncan was removed from, being that Mr. Duncan was in the care of Fraser Health Authority for a period of 40 days before he was medically kidnapped, which is a federal offense. And now the number is number 33. That's his, right? 28 on my part. Justice Ross again importing. Justice Ross is again importing misinformation by stating that Judy Chorney did not provide evidence that she held 2 power of attorneys, with one of them being enduring power of attorney since 1990, and with the other being power of attorney since 2001. And that's him repeating himself over and over again in his notice, in his dismissal, because we already discussed that further up, I'm pretty sure. But if you tell a lie enough times, people will begin to believe the lie. And that's what he's doing. He's perpetrating lie over lie over lie. And he does it multiple times. And he mixes it up as he's telling me on MS Team that he's going to silo everybody into their own, so that he can get a full understanding of what's going on. But he refuses to acknowledge gang stalking and the targeting of a whole family as if it doesn't exist. And it's impossible to even fathom it, in terms of, if you think about it and you convince yourself, or you maybe tend to agree that it could happen, somehow you become mentally ill because for whatever reason, you're not in touch with reality, because shit like that just doesn't happen. Okay? This is the mentality that I'm dealing with. Okay, number 29. Justice Bowden, because he brought up Justin Bowden. Justice Bowden ignored the evidence that was presented. Justice Bowden ignored the evidence that was personally handed over to him by court staff, as provided by Judy Chorney and as presented to him at the time in question, which is 35, whatever Judge Ross is saying on his dismissal. He's trying to say that Judge Bowden never seen anything official in regards to the enduring and the power of attorney that I had. So therefore, his decision was correct, which is a bunch of crock. And because I couldn't record the court, I can't prove what happened, because Justice Bowden has already falsified his own transcripts. "30. in reference to Justice Savage. 2. In reference to Justice Savage, he too was being misleading in his judgment to ignore material facts that Judy Chorney held 2 separate power of attorneys that were not removed from her in any legal way. So therefore, Judy Chorney was not required to go through the public guardian and trustee to follow up on her duties towards Mr. Duncan, because they're trying to say I had no right or no duties or no standing, which is a bunch of crock, because I did. And it wasn't my responsibility to go to the public guardian and trustee to reinforce those rights, because there was a whole bunch of vultures circling John. Okay? It was the vultures' responsibility to take me to court. But we're dealing with criminal activity here. (31), which is number 37 on his dismissal in terms of what I'm addressing. The burden to remove Judy Chorney from power of attorney or enduring power of attorney was the responsibility of Fraser Health Authority or on CIBC Bank or on Eleanor Gilding via court order. That is a material fact. This is where you stand your ground. (32), which is addressing number 39 on his dismissal. The Supreme Court of Canada and those thus far who represent justice have failed to call for any type of in-depth investigation into the gross treatment of Mr. Duncan and his family as sitting masters, judges, and justices too are covering up criminal activity that only benefits the public union sector as a whole, and including judges or justices or masters. Number 33, which is referencing number 40 of his dismissal, Justice Ross purposely ignores mail fraud and bank fraud to protect a public union sector employee named Eleanor Gilding and other government employees that are employed by the province of British Columbia, Canada. It is the government that cuts the check. Fraser Health Authority just passes it along. But if Fraser Health Authority doesn't get the check from the government, Eleanor doesn't get paid. But she's connected with Island Health Authority. But then maybe not, because she's way up high on the freaking ranks when it comes to managing the provincial immunization program for the whole province for all healthcare workers. So maybe she falls under a different portfolio, either or the government pays her to do that shit. So for the government to say that they're not responsible for the crap that goes on in hospitals, whether it's at the Victoria General Hospital or whether it's the Surrey Memorial Hospital or whatever hospital, is something. I want to say hogwash, but I'm sure there's a nice sophisticated word for it that if a lawyer was here, he'd be like, yeah, that's what it is, and we're going to sock it to them. Number 34, which is in reference to 47 of Judge Ross's dismissal. Justice Ross is being negligent to use Mr. Duncan as an isolated incident to suggest that the targeting of his immediate family did not happen as a result of him inheriting money that he was never told about for 14 months until such time Mr. Duncan was medically kidnapped via Fraser Health Authority and other parties and other parties to steal his assets. Number 35 in reference to number 47 of Judge Ross's dismissal. Mr. Duncan's story is just one example of how gang stalking and the targeting of a whole family works, to which Judy Chorney had the right to document in a legitimate way via filing official notice of civil claims that document criminal activity that deserves proper investigation by the province of British Columbia, Canada, being they are the employer to their employees. '36. Mr. Bernard John Duncan, born on August 17th, 1938, died on January 12th of 2018, 3 years after he was medically kidnapped by Fraser Health Authority staff and other third parties who illegally took over his inheritance without a court order, and that was illegally withheld from Mr. Duncan by Eleanor Gilding, his estranged sister, who works for the province of British Columbia, Canada. Number 37, making reference to Judge Ross's dismissal, is number 48 on what he has to say. Justice Ross is being mischievous to write that Mr. Duncan died in 2017, whereas the material fact is he died on January 12th of 2018, and Judy Chorney had every right to speak and to advocate in any capacity for Mr. Duncan's behalf upon his request. Because they're trying to say, well, he died before I showed up at fucking court, which is a bunch of bloody crock. '38, which is 49 on what he's got to say in his dismissal. Through the medical kidnapping of Mr. Duncan, it should be noted that he almost lost his life in transport to the Victoria General Hospital located in Victoria, BC, and to which Fraser Health Authority and their employer, the province of British Columbia, Canada, are responsible for, in addition to Mr. Duncan fell victim to an early death as a direct result of the bodily assault he had to endure on his persons. number 39, which is 50 of what this guy's got to say. Oh, no, number 39 is number 49 on what this guy's got to say. There is no statute of limitation on murder or attempted murder. $40, which reference number 50 on what this dude's got to say. Justice Ross, through his negligence, Justice Ross, through his negligence, openly protects criminal activity and the ongoing targeting of a whole family to ensure that the province of British Columbia, Canada, as a government, is not held to account for their number 41, which referenced number 52. Justice Ross is using Mr. Duncan's tragic circumstances surrounding the targeting of his persons as a tactic or as a distraction from what the whole family has had to endure and continues to endure as a result of government employee gang stalking. Number 42 is the last one that I wrote before I shut off the computer, which referenced number 52 on his dismissal. With Justice Ross suggesting that Mr. Duncan and his story is the only story to a long list of stories, is being purposefully misleading and negligent to avoid the deeper issues that result from the targeting of a whole family. And that's number 52. Which is page 13. So now I'm on page 13 going into number 53. And then I just have page 17 is only half a page, so that's how many pages left? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have about 4 pages left. I'm a little nervous though, because the last time I tried to do appeal, I don't know, they were telling me 6 pages, or they were telling me first 7 pages, then it went down to 3 pages, and then I don't know, Andrew came in with his 25 books of 500 pages, and I was just standing there with 3 pages. Obviously, no documents of any kind were submitted at the court registry because Justice Bowden failed to do his job when he received the official will, when he received the official document of enduring power of attorney and whatnot. He should have requested for me to go immediately to the court registry to file it so that it would be on record. Because by him not doing that, what it did is it set the stage for them to come back and say they don't know what they're talking about, which is a bunch of freaking crock and flat out lies. And that is why, I'm telling you people, that is why they don't want you to record these things, because they don't want to get caught up and be exposed for their scandalous behavior. Okay. Serious. So I'd say we're about 3/4 of the way done. If Rhea can come by today or tomorrow, oh, she's a whippersnapper. It will be done. I asked Tisha to phone the Court of Appeals to confirm if it's 30 business days or 30 days. And is the Court of Appeals open every day, or has the government cut back and only has the registry for them open 3 days out of the week? Or are we walking into a drop box? Who freaking knows? Okay. I'm almost done this live. If you just came in, we're at the end of it now. I got a long day. I got to go and start dishes. I have to wash up all my baking pans and crock pot and all that stuff that I used to render my lards. And then after that's all done, then I have to melt the lards, whatever, freeze the gelatin, melt the lards, jar them up, put them in the fridge, and then at some point take them downstairs and put them away. Right? I'll probably do this again, assuming that eyes are okay, in about 2 or 3 weeks, but it would be more than likely just pork fat at this point versus beef. Right? Just because you have to freeze the beef. But after that, I might do another thing of beef. Either or, it doesn't matter. And laundry and this and everything else that I do in a day. I'm kind of like stiff because I was digging up the dirt yesterday and taking out the small little potatoes, just whatever. I was preparing the dirt. I put in some really good vegetable scraps in there that had time just to settle down and, digging, mixing. And, I was out there for a little while, really got that done though. And now that one's ready to cover up. But I might add just one more bucket full of whatever I want in there, and then I'll cover it up. I'm just going to keep on moving. I told my landlady I'm covering. Why are you doing that? I said, well, weed control. Yeah. So just what I'm saying is just the intensive labor. I'm like, I feel drained. So it's just a kind of a poke around day. And then at some point, I'm going to try and sit down and tackle those other, 4 pages or whatever it was I just said. An hour and 12 minutes. We're just going to cut it off for now. This is part 5 of working on the appeal. I just had to read through it. I'm trying to stay as positive as I can. I'm trying not to beat myself up for the failure that I'll be coming into quite shortly once I file this. And it's not even a failure, because I feel like I won a long time ago because I know the truth. It's the government that is the failure. And they like to try and project. So you just project it back at them. All right, yo. I'm out of here. If Rhea comes by, and if she's up for it, part 6 will be with Rhea. And she will be in control, okay? And I'll be just sitting over there. So we'll see. We'll see what happens next when it relates to this, okay? All right. I'm out of here. I got to get on with my day. I so got to get on with my day. How do I end live? Here we go. Peace out, people. Have a good day. Get as much as you can done.